Why gamers have turned to pirating. Oh, legendary drops. Here, let's take a look. Why have gamers turned to pirating? Is it because we're broke?
I love pirating indie games. Recently, a tweet went out garnering 20.5 million views where a user on Twitter had posted an image of themselves downloading the indie hit first-person shooter Ultra Kill.
Oh, I remember this.
And the solo developer who made that game, going under the name Hakita, responded to the user saying, "As creator of said game, you should support indies if you can. But culture shouldn't exist only for those who can afford it."
Yeah, I remember this guy's response. This is such a goated response from a game dev developer for someone pirating their game. It wouldn't have gotten 20 million views if, you know, they didn't pirate it. It's good that he says, if you can't afford it, at least tell everybody about it with word of mouth, so those who can afford it can buy it.
Ultra Kill
which is 100%
true. I hadn't had easy access to movies, music, and games growing up. If you don't have money, you can support via word of mouth.
Yeah.
That line of culture shouldn't exist only for those who can afford it is beautiful. It's poetry, and honestly, it couldn't be any more true. Lately, we've heard nothing but these CEOs and gaming industry heads coming out talking about how the industry is shrinking and they're worried about the future of gaming and how they need to appeal to a wider and broader.
That's the problem. Gaming isn't, I don't know, I feel strong about this, but gaming isn't getting small and dwindling down. We could just see that gaming is not creative as it used to, which is why everyone is gravitating towards indie games. But because there's already like said companies that are already out there for big names like Rockstar for GTA or Call of Duty, Halo's actually, the Bungie destroyed themselves. But think about it, COD and GTA, 2K, another thing. These games are just copy and pastes of the previous year. Well, not GTA, I take that back. GTA is a whole, that's something else, but people will buy GTA or any Rockstar game because of the track record of Red Dead Redemption and also GTA. But when it comes to COD and 2K, a game that comes out annually, we're in this mind state, oh, I gotta just buy it because it's the newest one and I'm a fan of it. And that's how they milk their money. And we can see that the creativity is just dwindling down. Just don't pirate Nintendo. Yeah, they're gonna cease and desist you in your shower.
Modern audience, and the bell is tolled.
No. They're going to cease and desist you, then force you to take a shower.
Ringing loud and clear, and everybody can hear it except for these guys. See, because gamers today have been doing whatever they can by any means necessary to play the games that they want to play. And that's only because these CEOs and the heads of the industry are more concerned with the payers rather than the players.
Exactly.
If you've watched any of my videos, then you know this is a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, and that's holding publishers and studios accountable for the lies they weave and the graves that they've been digging themselves, all in the name of profit.
Yeah, games aren't inspirational no more.
As the gaming industry has grown and gaming
has gotten more
popular, it's become less about the players and more about their investors. Marketing minds that are taking control, these profit-seeking vampires with no understanding of how creative
why do you think Hi-Fi Rush was so good, man?
Havoc on beloved studios and franchises, bleeding them dry and leaving their carcasses out to be picked
that wasn't
by
an indie company, but
vultures.
You know,
it
small
shouldn't be
company.
a surprise to anybody at this point why piracy is on the rise.
Yeah, Ubisoft.
But let's break it down piece by piece so we understand why this is going on.
All right, break it down.
Why it's going to get bigger and why trying to stop it is the worst choice that these companies can make.
Nintendo will break your kneecaps and throw you into a river.
Raise prices at the grocery store.
Yeah, you're right.
The Business Insider headline says it all. Millennials are getting priced out of cities, and researchers don't necessarily think the trend will change.
It's not the news drivers wanted to wake up
it's because you want it to change. You want it to be like that and not change.
California hit a record high.
Dang.
Recently,
$6.79 plus the 12% tax y'all got out there. I feel sorry for y'all, man.
Or responses.
While this is what's happening in the US, this is happening all across the world. Plain and simple, money is tight, and while it might not be tight for everyone, it might not be tight for you, it's rough for a lot of people right now. As an example, when games like Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws are selling for $130 for the full game first day experience.
That is the main problem, bruh. It is not... Besides the price tag, the problem is when you're paying $130 for a game, it better come with a bidet and leave my booty shining clean after I take a dump every single time. And it better come with a golden chain and also, so I don't know, a golden controller. Like $130, you're ridiculous. They're saying you don't have to buy it. You could just buy the base game and get the pre-order bonus. No, because if I'm paying $70, I should get the entire game and not have to pay for the extra missions. And they're saying, here, just buy Ubisoft Plus or whatever it's called because it's a cheaper option. It's like, no, I don't want a cheaper option. I want a full functioning game. And when I pay it, I want to own it.
Experience,
it's grimy.
Without any regional pricing, that's over 700 Brazilian real. That's costing 1/4 of the average income of somebody in Brazil. You carry that pricing over to other countries with even lower average incomes and even less valued currencies, and one single game could be something that they could be saving months for. The cost of new
everything
video
goes up
games is
except for
significantly
paychecks.
impacting low-income consumers.
So sad.
And making it more difficult for them to access
You
some of
spend
these new
$120 for
releases.
Sparky.
As prices
But
for
that's
everyday
different. That's Dragon
essentials
Ball Z.
rise due to inflation, discretionary
Dragon Ball.
spending, including entertainment like video games, becomes more constrained. This is particularly evident in low-income households, which spend a larger portion of their income just on necessities, and they have less flexibility when it comes to price increases. So what is someone to do when a game just isn't accessible for them? And even when games are on sale, it's still too expensive.
Yep.
Well, they pirate.
Yep.
Piracy is a service issue. Plain as day, as simple as can be. It's a famous line said before.
Heck
Gabe
yeah.
Newell probably said it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. But what's going on right now is that there is a severe lack of regional pricing in the industry. There's a lot of games that are out there that are not fairly priced in every region, and as such, there's a lot of players that are out there that just don't have access to these games. It's not realistic for them to be able to afford any of these.
100%.
And I realize there's going to be some people that are going to hop in and go, hey, Mr. Streamer, YouTube guy, look here, there's tons of cheaper games that are out there. There's indie games that are out there. There's
But it's
free-to-play
not the
games,
game that
man.
I
There's
wanna
free-to-play
buy.
games. And, well, you're right. There are free-to-play options. You got games like Warframe or
same
Genshin
with streaming
Impact or
services.
Fortnite and stuff like that. And while that stuff
No, I
can
didn't pre-order
work,
it yet.
keep in mind at the exact same time, a lot of games like that are built to take advantage of those kind of people.
Yep.
Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And what I mean by that is that it's much easier to get somebody to spend $3, $5, maybe $10 than it is to get them to spend $70 or $130.
True.
It's a way for them to be able to capture some of those sales that they haven't been able to get because some of those people can't spend that much money, but we can nickel and dime them. That's much easier to do. That's the part.
And also, there's like people out there who have a bunch of money who are streamers and YouTubers where $130 is pocket change to them. But there are people out there who are like Moist Critical and Asmon Gold who are like, no, even though it's $130 and I have the money to spend and it's like $1.30 to me, I wouldn't want people to suffer. I want people to enjoy it just like me.
Part of the prevalency of microtransactions more than anything else. And keep in mind at the exact same too is that a lot of those games are built to take advantage of them also for being, well, food for the whales more than anything else, the schools of fish that the whales feed upon. And one of the things that's kind of bothering me lately, especially thinking about when people point to free-to-play games for folks that don't have a lot of money, is that I'm wondering if a lot of this regional price locking isn't put in place specifically to try to drive those players into their free-to-play games in the first place. And the reason being is because the more players that are there and the more players that aren't spending a lot of money that are there gives more fish for the whales to feed on. And also on top of that, it emboldens the prices and emboldens the purchases that a lot of these whales will end up paying for because of the fact that there's more people to be able to show off their skins to, more people to beat them in PvP, more people to show off their characters to, and whatever else.
That's true.
And I think it's also really important to keep in mind too is that while there are these free-to-play options and cheaper options, what if those aren't the games that these players want to play?
Yep. That's what I was saying. It's not the game that I want.
Year over year is digital only and online only. While the internet has become more widely accessible over the years, a 2023 study shows that approximately 67% of the world's population has access to the internet in varying degrees, but that still leaves 2.6 billion people without access at all. And keep in mind, I said varying degrees. While this study shows that they have access, the wide majority of that is likely not the high-speed internet that many of us enjoy, or even internet that's in their own household. Meaning that even if they have access, it's likely impossible to believe that any of them can even attempt to download Call of Duty Black Ops 6's
what I was about to say, man.
half a terabyte download before Activision releases the next Call of Duty. And we're not even talking about how playable online-only games have put even more pressure on there and put even more games out of reach of players.
Like, I don't have a
I've seen
NASA
far too many games over the last few years switch to playable online only, even when they're widely single-player experiences,
gigabytes is
or
gonna
even
cap
completely
my internet.
single-player experiences. Some of them are doing it because they want to make sure that players have access to DLC and online stores. Some of it's because most of these games aren't even contained on the disc
It's
anymore.
terrible.
However, the vast majority of it is because they're using it for anti-piracy purposes. They're using your internet connection to verify your purchase and your license and give you access to the game, which, I'll be honest, I think is something that is only directly serving to exacerbate this issue of lower than projected sales that many of these companies have been pointing to.
Yeah, and all they're doing with that is just slowing down the cracking process. You just got to accept that it's going to happen. Like, you can't run away from people cracking and pirating your game because it's just bound to happen if you have a great game or even just great music. Like, you can't run away from it. You just got to accept it and you just hope that if they pirate it, they buy it too. Don't try to crack down to make the user experience terrible because someone is always cracking your game. Like, de novo was the worst thing that happened to gaming. All it did is put a stat pad for how fast they could actually crack the game. Like, some games before were able to be cracked in a day. De novo, depending on how hard they work on it and how easy it is to crack, or I don't know how to crack games or nothing, but I know that de novo slows down that process. Instead of it being like a day or two, it's a week. So it's like, it's still going to happen. So you just wasted your time and you gave everyone a terrible user experience.
I mean, including these anti-piracy measures enforcing online only. Sure, you're stopping
yeah.
a group of players who may play your games through illegal means. However, on the other hand, you're potentially cutting off access to the game from millions of other players that otherwise would have bought it.
Exactly.
Let's use a game like Diablo as an example. Both Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 work for this because they are back-to-back Blizzard's fastest-selling titles of all time, record breakers. I mean, the Diablo franchise is one of the most recognizable IPs in all of gaming. But when you have a game that appeals to that wide of a player base, that attracts that much in sales, that equally means there is just as large of an audience that's out there that would have bought and played that game if they had the ability to. But they didn't.
Robert broke into your phone and played the entire FNAF series by pirating it.
Mostly single-player experience.
Curse
to
that Robert
only.
stealthy!
Blinded
Wait
by
till
the
I
allure
get
of
my
immediate
hands
sales,
on him.
These companies are going for the bag when they could have gone for the bank the entire time. Personally, I find it hilarious that these CEOs are running to the media crying about how they're seeing the industry going downhill, how there's less people to be able to sell games to, how their
where's the
investors are upset,
accountability?
they're going to have to lay off. It's just part of business. You know, they're reading the stars or whatever it might be, trying to figure out exactly what they're trying to do next. And it's all self-inflicted. This is all things that they're doing to themselves. It's almost like they didn't see the rake or even feel. They felt the rake, but didn't see the rake when they stepped on it. That's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that
This guy-
Sony and
this guy.
Helldivers 2 is the best example of this. Still to this day, it is not available in over 180 countries. That's
Wait, what
over
game?
90 countries of this. Felt the rake, but didn't see the rake when they stepped on it. That's probably the best way to say it. And, you know, I think that Sony and Helldivers 2 is the best example of
Helldivers
this.
2,
Still
yep.
to this day, it is not available in over 180 countries.
And they
That's
lied
over
to us.
90% of countries in the world that Helldivers 2 is not available in.
That's why I stopped
You're
playing.
doing this to yourself. When there are less players that have access to your games, that means that you make less money. That means that there's less people that are playing your game. That means there's less people that are talking about your game. That's less people that are selling that game.
So what happened with Sony, there's this huge, you know about the game Helldivers 2, right? When it first released, people were able to buy it on Steam in any region, right? Later on, it was like 3 months later, once the game gained like a huge popularity boost through the internet, we're getting like millions and millions of players a day. Sony decided to step in and was like, they saw the cash, they saw Mr. Krabs saw the money, and they were like, data, money. So they required almost every single player to have a Sony account to play. For me, I'm not mad because I have a Sony account. Have a PlayStation, but there's people who can't get they can't create a Sony account or can't even buy a PlayStation because it's not allowed in their country. So those people are just out of the picture and they can't play Helldivers because they can't make a Sony account. And on top of that, they also bought the game when it first released, and now they can't play it. So essentially, they just wasted $40 on a game they can't play, and it's just gonna look as a trophy on their, on their screen. And it's crazy because it's a fun game. Like, I would be upset if one of my favorite games got region locked. Like, imagine if Sparking Zero, they blocked us from playing it after buying it the first 2 months, like in America, and it's only allowed to be played in Japan. I would be pissed. Yeah, game suicide. It is insane. Microsoft Microsoft is a different story. Xbox is a decent console, but I don't know. Microsoft is digging their own grave right now too, Flair. So I don't know. I can't defend anybody because they're making terrible corporate decisions. So I don't know what to say. You're joking? Okay, you better be.
To their friends. When you don't make your games accessible, you make less money. Players have less options, and then those players go and make options for themselves. For many, piracy has become a necessity, even more so when we start looking at legacy titles and retro games. Piracy has increasingly become one of the only options that we have available to us for games preservation due to the evolving nature of digital downloads and often the prohibitive barriers that are imposed by these game publishers.
Yeah.
As digital
it's not
distribution
like we want to.
replaces physical
well,
media,
I don't pirate games,
many
but
games
those
are
who do,
delisted
it's not
from
like they
online
want
stores,
to.
rendering them inaccessible to future generations. Additionally, if you look at DRM restrictions and online-only requirements, even legally purchased games become unplayable once servers for those games are shut down. We recently just saw this with a slew of different games from Ubisoft, like The Crew.
Yeah.
In regions where games are either unavailable or unaffordable due to
Pirate
economic
is talking about
disparity
that.
or regional restrictions, piracy offers the only viable means to access and preserve a lot of these cultural artifacts. Without the unofficial channels that a lot of these players have access to, a significant portion of gaming history is completely lost, depriving future players of the joys that we've all had the chance to enjoy. I'd argue that the vast majority of people that are out there pirating games for themselves, trading pirated games, or buying them aren't doing it because they want to do it. They're doing it because they have to do it because there's no other options available to them.
Stop killing games.
Again, this is something that is ultimately brought on by the industry that's creating these games and not the consumers themselves.
Seems,
Back in 2014, a passionate fan of the
unless
game
you're missing some
E.T., which
information.
is playable teaser, a critically acclaimed horror demo that was made by Hideo Kojima, found themselves in a difficult situation.
PT.
The game, which was intended to promote the now canceled Silent Hills project, was suddenly removed from the PlayStation Store following Kojima's departure from Konami. For players who had already downloaded PT, it remained on their consoles, but for new players, they had no legal way to be able to access it.
Yep.
Recognizing the cultural and artistic significance of PT, this dedicated community fan took matters into their own hands. They distributed the game through various unofficial channels, ensuring that it could still be experienced and studied by future gamers and scholars.
Yep,
This
I remember
act of
that.
piracy was driven by a genuine desire to preserve a unique
Explain
piece
that
of
head
gaming
shake.
history that would otherwise have been lost to time.
Moist
Now we
Critical
go
will
and
tell
we
you
look
everything
at how
about Nintendo.
has handled piracy and games preservation by beating it over the head with a legal cudgel. Anybody that's caught pirating or redistributing any of Nintendo's
They
games
actually
will
took
face
down a
the
couple of
full
my
might of Nintendo's
videos
legal
a
team.
long
There is
time
a
ago
high
when I used to
demand
make
for old
Smash Mods
Nintendo games
videos.
that they haven't been filling. Now, while
They only
they
took
have
down-
released
they
systems
didn't
like
take
the
down
NES
one, but-
Classic and SNES Classic, both of them selling tens
Yeah,
of millions
before
of
a couple
units,
of them
by the
blew
way,
up.
there is a wide
And then
variety
Nintendo
of
was
classic
like,
games
"No, you
Nintendo
can't have that
doesn't
up."
make
I'm like, oh,
available.
what?
While luckily there are still some working physical versions of these products that are still out in the wild, the demand for these games is so high and the supply of them is so low that some of these prices have been jacked up to obscene highs by resellers.
Nintendo wants to
While the
end
NES
emulation,
and
honestly.
SNES Classic were
It's like
awesome
you can't
releases,
prevent
they don't
people
include
from-
all of the
Nah,
games that were released
swear.
on those systems. Some of them being classics.
They're just not
and
fun at
favorites of
parties.
many.
Put it that way.
Nintendo chooses to waste their legal fees chasing these sites and emulators rather than just
Yep.
making older games accessible and more affordable to everybody. Again, it's another company that's leaving money on the table for no good reason and
Really?
creating a piracy issue on their own. Now, I want everybody to keep in mind that the NES Classic and the SNES Classic outsold modern consoles in the months that they were released in.
And that's why they started doing the cease and desist for emulators online. So there was like a huge emulator scene for Nintendo, and every single website that was up, gone. You can't play none of their emulators. So you got to be lucky. If you had some of them downloaded and you had the emulators, then you're good. Yeah, they be in their own world. It's like, just let the people do what they want, man. It's like, you can't control everybody. It's
Which shows that
impossible.
there was a massive hole waiting to be filled. There was a huge.
It's not
part
like
of
they're
the
doing
market that
anything
was
wrong.
looking
It's not
forward
like they're selling
being
it to
able
make
to experience
profit.
these kind of games again, or even
Because even the
experience
people
for
in the
first time.
community prevent
I'm
that.
sure
They're
there's
like,
a ton of
they
newer
frown
generation,
upon
younger
that.
generation players
This
that are
is
out
not
there
for
that wanted to
resellable
play
use.
these games because
It's
they've been
for
hearing
your
about them their entire
enjoyment.
lives, watching videos like this, and they finally got the chance to play it on updated televisions with HDMI, and they went out and bought it too. They want to buy these games. They want to play these games. And it's as simple as that. It's just crazy to me looking at a company like Nintendo that's spending all this money on legal fees, fighting piracy, that they created themselves. If they would just make those games available and make them more widely accessible and affordable, well, then players are going to play them. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You don't need to spend all this money on legal fees.
Right.
Chances are you'll make far more money doing it that way than the way that you're doing it right now.
No, it's just
Look,
greediness. People are just
piracy
for you.
good,
Like
I don't think it's
Flair,
good. It's obviously
they're not
illegal.
paranoid.
It's
They're
illegal
greedy
for a good reason. But at the exact same time, it's not the pirates that are the problem here. It's the companies. Now, I want to roll back to the initial tweet from Hikita. As creator of said game, you should support indies if you can, but culture shouldn't exist only for those who can afford it.
Yep.
Ultra Kill wouldn't exist if I hadn't had easy access to movies, music, and games growing up. If you don't have money, you can support via word of mouth.
And that's all
Now,
Nintendo
I'm sure
had to
there
say.
are those that are out there that believe that those of low income or low income countries have a lot more to worry about than video games. Hikita is right. Status shouldn't be a barrier to happiness and culture, especially when that barrier is artificial. Games can be cheaper, games can be more available, and artificial restrictions that are imposed by the industry shouldn't have any bearing on somebody's access to enjoyment, education, and art.
You know what I think will fix this issue for every single game dev? Or not just indie game devs, the AAA companies, if they release every new game half off the first 3 days of release, I guarantee you everybody and their mama's going to be paying for the game. Like, make the game 50% off the first 3 days, have like millions of people buy your game, and have that for word of mouth, and then everyone sees it, and by the time they figure out 3 days later that it's too late, it's going to be full price tag. Or for those who know that it's 50% off, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to take my chance because I can't really afford it, but I'm going to get it now. Like, that might be a good solution, honestly. You mean greediness? Greediness will never stop. Hey, thank you for the follow, Mooney. Yeah, you don't get this from the indie game devs. The indie game devs out there, they're working hard. You know, most indie game devs have their own life, own job, and then this is like a passion project for them. That's why I respect it. And then it's so much better than any of the AAA games that we play. Oh, sorry, quadruple A games that we played nowadays.
I think he also points out something else that far too many have lost touch with, and it's something that's growing more obvious over the last few years. Players sell more games than marketing does.
Yep.
Now, I've brought this up in the past in a previous video, but back in April, Baldur's Gate 3's head of publishing, Michael Dowse, was talking about the popularity and the sales of Baldur's Gate 3 and his thoughts on video game marketing. He was quoted saying, "Marketing is dead. It truly is. I can back this shit up, man. There are no channels anymore. It doesn't work. You used to have marketing, communication, and PR.
Yeah.
Marketing was essentially just retail theory. You were trying to get your box on the right point of the store shelf. And you had partnerships with retail stores. Those pipelines are gone.
Publishers.
Now you've got the internet. Nobody's looking at ads anymore. All of these channels we would use to market through are no longer really viable. So their function is also reduced by the fact that players just want to be spoken to. They don't want to be bamboozled. They just want to know what you're making, why you're making it.
Thanks for the follow, Flair.
The reason I bring that up is because Hikita recognizes what many in the industry don't. Even
companies don't see that. They're all Mr. Krabs. They only see dollar signs.
Sell your game. With the age of the internet and the prominence of social media, communication has been the best way to move products. Most people ignore ads. They do whatever they can do to try to avoid them.
Yeah.
The more players that are talking about your game means it's more likely to be noticed by more people, and it's probably going to sell more copies.
Like, you know how I know that like ads, no one watches ads. Like, my dad is one of those guys who is like, really do everything right. You know, there's no in between, and he uses ad blockers. So I'm like, oh, if my dad figured out a way to use ad blockers because he's tired of ads, then maybe we shouldn't be seeing ads. Just like Mr. Beast, too much money corrupts a person.
It's just as simple as that. The video game market
like
is becoming
that, man.
more and more saturated year over year, especially on the indie side.
I know
of
for
things.
sure
And
I would never change.
how many people do you think out of that 20.5 million views that retweet got heard about Ultra Kill for the very first time? What percentage of those people maybe went and took a look at the game and then realized that it was a game that they wanted to buy and then they bought it? What are the chances that they bought it just because they really liked the guy's take and wanted to support an indie developer that was based? And it was as simple as that. Look, you know, the thing is that I saw a lot of people that were posting in some of the comment section on that retweet that were saying, oh, how long is he going to say this until everybody's now pirating his game? And the funny thing is with that is that, like, you can say what you will about folks that are encouraging it, But the vast majority of people just aren't going to pirate. And the reason why is because there's too many risks that are associated with it. Me, as an example, I'm not going to play pirated games, not because I don't want to play games for free. That sounds fantastic. It's one of the reasons why I started a YouTube channel in the first place. But it's because I only have one computer, and the last thing that I want to do is screw it up because I was trying to download and play a game for free. Same thing can be said for people that have consoles. A lot of those folks don't want to have to go through the hassle or the risk of cracking those consoles for them to be able to play those games and play hacked games or play ROMs or whatever it might be. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to have to deal with the risk. Even more so, a lot of folks that are out there are playing games. They're playing them with friends, and the last thing they want to do is not be able to play with their friends online if they do have online access. So, like, the general consumer market isn't going to be interested in pirating games because it's too risky and it's too much of a hassle. The vast majority of those people are just going to want to go and just play the game. They're going to want to go and buy it. It's as simple as that. And this is a service issue at the end of the day. It has nothing to do with the pirates.
Yeah, 100% it's a service issue. You don't know, James. People all probably say that, and then bam, we're caught in the money of Greek genjutsu. Jutsu so powerful, you can't broken out of it. No, you know why I say that? It's because I've been in a position where I had lots of money. That's how I knew I was gonna be the same. Because when it happened, I was like, oh, everything is still the same. I'm still the same person. This is pretty cool. Because I'm more generous when I have more money. I give to more people, give to charities, give to family that's in need, also take care of myself. I'm just able to live more comfortably. That's just the difference. But I mean, I'm not rich, you know what I'm saying? Big companies could use it to their advantage. Yeah, definitely pirating for sure. Word of mouth. Yeah. You know, on my bank account, it was more than Jay Schlatt's numbers on his back in that video we watched before. What was it? 4 million? Pish posh. That's petty change.
It'd be illegal. It's illegal for a good reason. But at the exact same time, this is an issue that's created by the companies that are making these games.
Money never bought a second of time.
Players are going to find solutions for themselves. Consumers always find solutions for themselves. It's as simple as that. If you're not going to provide me with the service that I require, I'm going to go find it from somebody else. That's what we do. If you're not going to sell me something for the price that I need you to sell it to me for, then I'm either going to wait or go buy it from somebody that's going to give me a better deal. And that's exactly what's going on right now. These companies are not filling needs that are in the market. And more, they keep complaining about the industry going downhill, and it's them that are making these games less available. You want to make all the money? Make it where everybody can play your games. But that's not what's happening. Whether that's console exclusivity, whether that's online only, whether that's locked regional pricing or whatever it might be, there's all kinds of issues that are out there that these companies are causing, and they're the ones to blame for the piracy that they're creating. And they're the only ones that can fix it. Otherwise, players are going to find ways to play games. Simple as that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's all I got. It's a really interesting issue. I mean, the dev is absolutely catastrophically based for his take. It's absolutely fantastic. I personally 100%. Went out and bought the game pretty much. I played the demo and really enjoyed it. It's actually really sick, to be honest with you.
No, Ultra Kill is a good game.
It's kind of one of those things.
I saw Markiplier play it first.
In these circles of games that you always follow, and you never really hear about some of these other indie games or things like that that are out there. And the next thing you know, all of a sudden, you get exposed to it in one way or another, and you're like, holy shit, how did I not see this? It's a lot of fun. If you guys see some of the gameplay from the video, you might like it. Give it a shot. Anyway, thank you guys for watching the video. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Follow me on Twitch if you want to catch me reacting to news and things like that live, as well as, sometimes playing video games, I guess, too. But outside of that, yeah, that's all I got. Peace.
Peace. Family. Good video. Good video. El Moist Critical Clone. Hold on, Stealthy. And that's about it. See ya.
Peace.